Cheers and welcome. This is Sugichi RPG as always, and thanks for joining me today on my Septerra Core The Legacy of the Creator review. This is a very special game because I call it a JRPG because it has all those elements that a JRPG has, which is world map, stat system, item equipping system, level system, active time battle, characters influenced by magic and steampunk. And Septerra Core has all of that except one thing. It wasn't made on Japan. It was actually made by an American company called Valkyrie Studios and was published by Monolith Productions back in '99. So it's an over 16-year-old game. And it has actually survived pretty well from that time. But let's talk about, before I jump into the actual review and talk about the game, I have to say that this is a game that I found initially 10 years ago from a flea market. So it was kind of random that I just looked out throughout the chunk on the flea market. This was some old building which was about to be taken down, and they just ran flea markets there. And I happened to stumble across a Septerra Core CD-ROM version, and it was like 5 to 10 euros then. And I was like, fuck it, I buy it. It looked cool from the cover. And back then I already played Final Fantasy IX, A Legend of Dragoon, and other JRPGs, so I got the JRPG feel, and of course the back of the description had something mentioned about active time battle or something, and I was like, I'm gonna buy this. And I played like halfway through, and then I stopped playing it because I got stuck, and then I later, bought it from Steam and GOG. But here's the thing, if you're gonna buy it, I'm gonna say this, that you have to go into the the folder where the game installs, and you have to open the launcher file and change its properties to compatibility mode to Windows Millennium Edition or Windows 98. Otherwise the game doesn't actually work on the newer versions of Windows or Linux or Mac. So that's something really important that you have to do in order to run the game. And let's talk about Septerra Core. So even though it has a bit of problems getting it to run, even though it doesn't run super well because some of the cinematics actually get skipped, some of the dialogue gets skipped or a bit rushed, as you can see in some of the clips on this video. But most of the time you can watch the cinematics from YouTube, and most of the time you're able to read the dialogue as well before it rushes through. But Septerra Core, let's talk about the story of the game, and the world. So the world map is kind of unique. So it's this planet thing, but instead of being actual planet, it has these shells. Okay, you have 7 shells, and in the middle you have the core. These shells are kind of like these floating continents that actually, I would say, well, they are kind of like the core kind of draws them in and keeps them in balance so they don't get lost in the space or anything like that. And the cores have their own people, and some of the cores are more primitive, some of the cores have different a landscape. So the world is very different. You have one thing that's really weird lava place, then you have a lot of canyons and craters and sand and desert. And then you have this green place, which is a lot full of forests and medieval type of cities. And then you have the slum, very post-apocalyptic type of a cyberpunk city. And then you have ancient ruins, and then you have the actual core and spaceships and everything kind of cool. And you can able to travel between the shells throughout the game. On the later stage of the game, you get a spaceship which you can use to go to different places, which is kind of cool. But let's talk about the game itself. So the story is pretty much that the main character is hanging around on his own shell. Maya is the main character, and then he has a few friends in the beginning, and then they start to resolve some of the problems, and then it evolves to this big thing with the Chosen. And Chosen are the people who talk about the ancients, which are the Marduk and Gemma. I think they're taken from Indian folklore or something. I don't remember right now what it was, but they were the ancient hero and evil which fought against, and now there's a reincarnation, and things start to happen. All this prophecy stuff, kind of like generic JRPG, but there's a lot of twists in it, and there's a lot of side stories which kind of happen on each of the shells as you progress throughout the story. The game offers kind of like somewhere around 30 to 50 hours of gameplay. It has somewhat a lot of side quests into it and secret places where you can get secret items and trinkets. And of course there's interesting characters in this game, not just from the design standpoint, but also from the dialogue. And there's rivalries between some of the party members, and they may even attack each other in the party because they're rivals. But you can actually fix those rivalries with the characters through certain side quests at some point in the game. And there's of course parts where you have a bit of an anti-hero character, especially in the game, and he may leave from the party for a while and then come back. And there's kind of like this cool dialogue. And as you can see on a lot of the gameplay clips on the background, you can talk to all the NPCs on the game, and you can choose all the different characters from your menu to talk with them. Then they have a unique interaction, which is really cool. There's a lot of dialogue in the game, and that's all voiced. Back in '99, you didn't have JRPGs with a voice. Final Fantasy X was probably one of the first ones among Septerra Core. Final Fantasy IX didn't. Final Fantasy VIII didn't have audio dialogue. They just had text, and most of the other Japanese JRPGs didn't have audio. So the audio is pretty dead on. I would have to say there's good audio voice actors in this game. And let's talk about the combat and the music. Not much to talk about the music instead. It's very mediocre. Nothing to stand out. I think that's something that maybe could have given more JRPG feel, but I guess they wanted to go something more American, I guess, or more distinctive. But it's okay. I was able to deal with it. But the combat, oh yeah, I have to say some of the abilities and some of the creeps and NPCs, and the enemy NPCs, have the same audio. There's this scream voice that I really hated on the game, and it got repeated multiple times on the game because many abilities had the same audio. But this has this active time battle system, so like in old Final Fantasy, you have this time bar that goes, and when it's ended you get your turn. But in this game you can have the bar is separated on 3 parts, and depending on which bar you lock into, you get 3 different levels of attack. You have level 1 attack, level 2, and level 3. There's usually different options. Some may drain this thing called the core energy, which is the mana. But unlike in other games, the mana is shared between all the characters. So there's one mana bar, which all the characters use at the same time. So it's a one bar for everybody. If it's run out, nobody can use magic, pretty much. And then you have these fate cards, which are other part of magic, and you can combine these cards, and they will do these dual elemental attacks, and you can do summons, and they get powerful once you collect more of these cards. And the combat is pretty good from certain standpoints, but it gets kind of boring after a while. You can dodge a lot of the fights if you move and ignore the line of sight of the enemies. There's few cheats on the game that show the line of sight of the enemies, and you can skip certain pathways to dodge enemies and not getting into fights, which is some may like to do it, some may not. But I have to say that one of the big downsides, along with the glitches on the game, the battle got kind of repetitive after a while because the combat wasn't super amazing, But for an indie studio, well, not really an indie studio, but a small first startup studio, it was pretty good, well done combat for that time. And I have to say that Septerra Core has a pretty good story, good characters, good dialogues. The dialogue is really good, and as I said already, it's kind of ahead of its time. There's a lot of shots fired, romance elements into it, and quirky sarcasm, all that type of cool stuff that makes characters more unique and not too stereotyped. All the characters in this game are they don't feel very stereotyped, in my opinion. Maybe few, but most of them are kind of unique, and they have their own motives and stuff like that, which is cool. And there's not really mini games into this game like some Final Fantasy games have, but you can some of the characters, for instance, can steal from shops, and they get items. If they get caught, the prices go up in the store, and that's a really cool element on the game that they actually featured. But Sephiroth Core, you know, you can get it for $5 from Steam. It's okay game. You get a lot of hours from it, and there's a lot of side quests to do, a lot of secrets, and you know, it's not really bad. Ending was kind of what the fuck, sort of. But I have to say, you know, from game that was made on 99, it wasn't too bad. I mean, the graphics of the landscape and the terrain actually really good, even though the models kind of look bad in today's standards, but it still looks pretty good compared to even to some of the games that were released on early 2000s. It looks a lot better than them. But just to wrap it up, you know, it's a good game. It doesn't maybe offer a lot of customization features in terms of like running it on full screen or window mode. It only pretty much lets you change audio. But if you can look past some of the glitches and running it on the Windows Millennium Edition mode, it's a good buy. Good worth of money, so to speak. You get good value for your money in terms of hours and gameplay and stuff to do. And if you like especially old school games. Thanks for watching this video. Please consider subscribing for more JRPG content and give it a thumbs up. And if you have any problems running the game, you can leave it on the comments below if you have any questions or anything like that about the game. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.